Greetings sailors and welcome to one of my NA server games. Those of you that have watched some of my more recent Warships videos will know that where previously I was playing on NA with a Patreon supporter on World of Tanks, well, I convinced them to switch over to Warships, and as for myself, I decided to try a line I've not tried before. Now, this is not the first time I've had one of my NA games, but the last time was I'm pretty sure it was a Bogatyr game, so it was a little bit Seal Clubby, but I'm beyond that stage now. I'm now as far as the tier 6, the Budyonny, or as my brain will insist on rendering it, the Buddy Holly. So this is a game with Redman36. He's in the tier 6 Japanese carrier there, and it's not great matchmaking. It's a tier 7 game, but it's definitely not terrible. It could be a lot worse. What is terrible, however, is my shooting at times in this game. But fortunately, the Budyonny is a rather forgiving ship in that regard. It's got some fast-firing 6-inch guns to work with. And so, if I was in a battleship and my first half a dozen salvos really sucked, well, that would be the first, 3 minutes wasted right there. Whereas in a Budyonny, the first half dozen salvos doesn't take quite that long. Still, at times, if you wince at my shooting, it's probably entirely justified. Now, the cruisers overall thus far, once you get to tier 5 and you get past the Imperial Russian Navy ships, it does change quite a lot. And I have to say, I didn't like the Kirov at all when I first tested them way back in the day. And going through the Kirov again, well, I still don't like it very much. It's just something about the combination of its fragility plus the fact that it's almost but not quite got the 8-inch firepower of some of the other cruisers, well, I say some of the other cruisers, of the Japanese cruisers of that tier. It just, I don't know, it was a very awkward combination somehow, and just occasionally the guns would work. But I kept expecting it to be something more like a Molotov, and I really like the Molotov, but it just wouldn't work in the same way that my Molotov works. And of course, it's a different set of guns, essentially. The Molotov's guns are, I mean, they're still 7-inch guns, but they are much more modernized. I think it's like a 50s refit is what the Molotov represents, with guns that you essentially see at tier 9. On the Dmitry Donskoy. So that's, I mean, it's funny, it's more or less the same platform. I think the armor is a bit better on the Molotov, but just the difference in the guns is enough to change for what at tier 5 is a really frustrating experience into something that's really fun at tier 6, even though the Molotov is still really fragile and it can still get punished really easily. But the Budyonny is definitely a different beast. It's got these fast-firing 6 inches, and although I do still have games where I make an unwary turn, or I'm not aware somebody's shooting at me, and I just get splatted, I still find it more fun. And I think it is down to the difference in firepower than the Kirov. It's just sometimes, you know, equally as unforgiving, but overall it's a more comfortable ship to play. And so, although I'm still struggling with the line a little bit overall, I mean, light cruisers are not my forte, I'm thinking maybe it will get a little bit easier from tier 6 upwards. Although, of course, after this comes the infamous Shores, which is, yeah, it has, I think, the worst turning circle in the game for something that isn't a carrier. That was a team kill, by the way. Our Minikaze has just managed to torpedo the Farragut, and I'm pretty sure it was 100% the Minikaze's fault. You don't put torpedoes out near an ally like that. You absolutely have to learn torpedo trigger discipline. Is that a thing when you talk about torpedoes? So, yeah, the Farragut was understandably not terribly pleased by that. The carrier, meanwhile, the enemy carrier, well, I triggered my defensive AA to help out Redman with a fighter squadron, and then just the tail end of it caught this torpedo drop. So the first drop gets disrupted, but the second drop isn't going to be. And that's bad news for me, or slightly bad news, because this, of course, does not turn well. Now, it's better than the Shores, which is the absolute nadir of the Soviet cruisers. But the Budyonny still turns like a garbage scow. it really does not handle in the water well at all. And so trying to dodge torpedo drops like that when you don't have the disruption of the defensive AA going, it's pretty difficult. Now, I only took one, fortunately, and the enemy carrier is now dead. But that was damage that it would have been nice not to have taken. Anyway, we've secured this end of the map, but it's not... I mean, we're not doing too badly at the moment. It's fairly even on numbers, but the enemy team are now pushing B fairly hard. And this is approaching a critical time in the game where it could really tip either way. We do have a slight points advantage right now. Killing their carrier is especially useful, as of course a carrier is worth as many battleships as a point, or possibly as many points as a battleship. Wow, I mean, I've spoonerized a bit in the past, but that one was pretty special. How do you confuse a multisyllabic word like battleships with points? I don't know. Well done, brain. Well done. That was good, even for me. Anyhow, I'm just going to sit here and pelt shells over the limb of this island for as long as I can get away with. I can set some fires, that would be nice. I've set a couple already, although I've not done any tremendous amount of damage with it. I mean, damage-wise, this game is going to turn out to be fairly respectable, but I've not done a huge amount so far. My shooting has settled down a bit by this point, though. I'm still missing and overestimating and underestimating a fair bit at times. But, I mean, it's like that when I play the Cleveland or really any fast-firing cruiser. I spend the first couple of minutes just adjusting to the guns. Whereas with battleships, I don't know, maybe because I've played more battleships overall, I find it a little easier. And I tend to concentrate on certain battleships. So at the moment, for instance, it's pretty much the North Carolina and the Budyonny. And so because I'm playing those ships over and over again, it's relatively easy to keep in mind the characteristics of the shells. Whereas cruisers and destroyers and things, I tend to jump around a bit more, and a bit of frame rate derp there, don't know why. So yeah, it's maybe a little more variable of an experience. So I decided to pull a slightly risky turn here, but I was confident that their guns were facing the other way, and so they are. So I just pull around long enough to get some shots into this Colorado. The disadvantage of pulling this kind of turn, however, is, of course, I've only got my rear turret available, and on the Soviet cruisers, generally, your offensive armament is concentrated more towards the front of the ship. And sometimes that's advantageous, and other times it's not. So the Minikaze there, clearly making a run for our Texas, and I mean, he might well get the Texas, but this is a very ill-judged maneuver, because he's put himself right in the firing line of quite a lot of enemy ships. Well, enemy ships to him anyway. And so, although he does... actually, no, he doesn't even get the Texas. It's the Scharnhorst that kills the Texas. He does, you know, at least threaten the Texas. I can put it that way. Maybe try and save my dignity slightly. No, my dignity's long gone by this point. He actually throws his own ship away in the process. So I've spotted... the Scharnhorst is maybe making a move towards... I mean, I don't know if I was trying to intercept at this point, but I've spotted the Scharnhorst is moving towards A. And then the last remaining enemy destroyer, the Hatsuharu, also gets spotted moving even towards A. So, what was maybe a slightly half thought out maneuver to try and get some distance then turns into, well, I'm going to go and try and help out Redman and defend A. Because, as I've said, a carrier is worth as many points as a battleship. Although that's not exactly what I said the first time round, but we won't go over that again. This is not ideal, especially given the fragility of my ship and the fact I'm now at half health. I do, however, have Redman 100% backing me up here, because it's in his interests to keep these guys lit up, especially the destroyer. He's at a major disadvantage in that I can ask Redman to keep him lit at all times. The fact that he's got a Scharnhorst backing him up, though, is very bad news for me. Although it could be worse, because of course the Scharnhorst has 11-inch guns. If it was the Gneisenau with 15-inch guns, that would actually be more of a problem. At least against those 11-inch guns, I can angle somewhat and maybe get some bounces. I might also be more liable to get overpens rather than more severely damaging shots. So this Hatsu, I mean, he's spotted Redman, I think, at this point, and is trying to make a beeline for him, which is good for me because it means he's straightened up a bit. And I've also got a slight window here where I can keep an island between me and that Scharnhorst. And if it was just the Hatsu alone, I would be making now a beeline towards this Hatsuharu. But getting that close would be very, very dangerous. So I'm just maneuvering at range as best I can. And I've found that with the Budyonny. You've got a good range in this ship, and you kind of have to use that because you maneuver so badly. It's not like an Omaha where occasionally you can afford to get closer and then just try and dance around and dodge. Although maybe the Murmansk is a better example because the Murmansk has an absurdly good rudder shift time. It's got a rudder shift that beats some destroyers, for crying out loud. The Marblehead, I don't know why I'm bringing in the Marblehead, it's the third of the Omahas in the game. In comparison with its shorter range, where you kind of have to just dance around at the shorter ranges because you don't have a choice. So, bit risky, but crucially, a thing is happening. The Scharnhorst has done what so many players do in these circumstances, and has gone, ooh, a carrier, and immediately started shooting at Redman. He's also got the Hatsu coming in from the other side. Now, he's got his torpedo bombers going for the Scharnhorst, but he's got his dive bombers going for the Hatsuharu, and I'm struggling to land hits on the Hatsuharu here. But having planes in the air, of course, means that he is able to spot the incoming torpedoes and take avoiding action. The Hatsuharu releases his torpedoes really quite early. So I switch my fire back at this point to the Scharnhorst because, having taken some hits, he is now comfortably within a range where I could take him out with my guns. And the Scharnhorst, noticing that he's being shot at and perhaps realising the danger that he's in, switches his fire back to me. But I'm bow on at this point, and this is where the fact that he's a Scharnhorst and not a Gneisenau, or say a Colorado, or a Nagato, comes in rather handy. There's a couple of shots coming in from the middle as well, and I'm so caught up, and I was so caught up at the time in what was going on in front of me, that I didn't quite notice what was going on the rest of the map, but you might. We've got 2 other ships left, and the remaining ships are in the centre. So Redman took out the destroyer with his secondaries. I took out that Scharnhorst with the help of Redman, of course. If he hadn't used his torpedo bombers on the Scharnhorst, there's no way I could have survived. I mean, I might have gotten close enough to use my torpedoes, but of course the Scharnhorst has, he's even got better range torpedoes than I do, so that still would have been risky. But meanwhile, all the while that this situation was going on, and me and Redman working together to save each other's lives, somehow we've brought this back. We were at a severe disadvantage at one point, and then I don't quite know. I mean, I was so obviously occupied with what was going on right in front of me, for obvious reasons, that somehow the rest of the team, while I wasn't looking, have managed to turn this around. So even though the enemy team have 2 cap points, even though they have the points advantage, they're now down to 1 ship. Don't ask me why I didn't pop out a spotter plane at this stage, by the way. It would have been easier, but I don't know, I decided not to, or just didn't think to. Anyway, so this Colorado's going down. Redman's torpedo bombers are nearly there. Crucially, I set 2 fires, and so that means he doesn't have damage control available, so if I don't get him, then the flooding will. However, and you don't see it just because it cuts off right before the end, I actually got the kill through the ticking fire damage, which was maybe slightly stealing it from Redman with his torp bombers going in at the end there, but I don't know, the ticking fire damage was just enough that I was able to secure that final and 3rd kill. So that was 1899 base XP, 3 kills, couple of plane kills, nothing particularly special. Redman was 4th place on the team there with a very respectable 1400. And as you can see, 68, nearly 69k damage in the end there, mostly from the high explosive. I did get 20k fire damage though, which is not too bad. Absolutely no AP damage because I don't think if you have a broadside cruiser and you are close enough, then absolutely go for the AP. But I was never in that situation in this game, so it was just HE spam all the way, which is a little unadventurous, but you know, it works. So there we are, the Budyonny, or the Buddy Holly if you're like me and your brain is a bit special, as I think we have established. Yes. So hopefully you have enjoyed this game, and if you have, you can leave any comments below, you can hit the like button, you can sub to my channel if you haven't already, and as always, stay tuned for more.